Hey everybody, welcome back to the Dawn of Drones podcast. I'm Don Zoldi, your host and the CEO of P3 Tech Consulting. We are in an incredible month of industry enablers, and we kicked it off huge last week in Grand Forks, North Dakota with our two sponsors, Grand Sky and True Weather Solutions. So if you missed that episode, go back and check it out. Don Bershoff and Tom Sawyer were lit. I mean, it was such a great show. We were in the lobby of the UAS Summit and Expo, and we did a whole bunch of stuff there last week. So check that out. But this week, we're so honored to have with us Troy Hittle from Elistair Drones. Troy is actually joining us from France as we speak. So welcome to the show, Troy.
Many thanks, Don. Yeah, I thought it'd be, really authentic if I just went to Lyon, the headquarters, to do the podcast. But no, seriously, happy to be here. Thank you so much.
Very cool. And looks like we already have people jumping into the chat here, Troy. Charlie Keyball saying Troy with like multiple exclamation points. So I guess you got a fan out there already. So that's amazing. So Troy, obviously Charlie probably knows you, but maybe not everybody else does. So can you tell us a little bit about your background?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, CK is kind of a part of it in some way. My journey towards drone and in the commercial space goes back to 2010. But before that, I was a TACP in the Air Force where CK and I met. And but after I got out, yeah, I started my journey towards drones, doing ISR stuff for DoD and contracting. And then did a stint of that over about 5 years or so, and then focused over on the commercial side. So I've done it all in the drone space, from piloting to instructing to having a business, and loving the space. Still here, happy to be here.
Well, we're glad you're here. And Troy went a little bit deeper into his background on our clubhouse last Thursday. Maggie Schuster led that conversation with Troy. If you missed it, I know we can drop that link. Check that out. You can listen to that on replay. It was a great conversation with Maggie and Troy. So don't miss out on that content either. But thank you for your service, Troy, and CK out there. Really appreciate both of you. And I know like that military mindset, informs everything you do now. And clearly it does with your work here at Elistair. I know we're going to get deeply into this, but before we roll a video showing a little bit about this really cool Orion drone and your tethered system, can you tell us a little bit about Elistair? I mean, you're at the headquarters in Lyon, France. Tell us about the company.
Yeah, absolutely. So roughly 8 years ago, two engineers set out and won a competition in San Francisco. And that really kind of spurred this growth and innovation, this idea to create tethered solutions for drones. Since then, we've emerged and grown and moved into the drone manufacturing space as well. So Elistair, at the end of the day, provides two tether solutions, and we also create a drone of our own, the Orion 2, which we'll talk a lot more about. But that's what we're bringing to the table. And of course, I'm here, so I'm excited to be here and those types of things. But aside from all that, I think it's extremely impressive to see a drone company endure and last as long as they have, with good growth and market share. So exciting.
Yeah, and we're gonna talk quite a bit about the security solutions, really, in the kind of the market sector, if you will. But let's roll this video, and why don't you walk us through what we're seeing here, Troy? Because picture paints 1,000 words, so we'll have you do that.
Absolutely. So the Orion was really developed for three main missions. You have Overwatch, you have fob security, so perimeter, right? And the bottom line there too is to keep endurance so that you can stay on station, right? So here we're seeing the DoD application. Orion is a hexacopter, so you're able to put together and deploy it roughly 10 minutes. We'll say 15 minutes, but it's faster. We're working with a 3-axis gimbal, so you have more long-range, medium to long-range capability. That's a more serious sensor at the end of the day. So if you need to mobilize, set up, and provide some persistent overwatch, this is a really good solution for that. Can be used in multiple different applications, of course. The Orion was built for tether, right? So that's the difference. When we talk about our stations, you can use other drones with it, but we developed Orion to stay tethered. That allows you to fly up to 24 hours, and we've flown longer before, but we advertise 24 hours Obviously, you can put Orion in a beautiful background scenery.
I love it.
That's one of our company money shots there. But but yeah, so if you need that persistent overwatch for deploying other assets or whatever it may be, it's a good central command type of application. Um, Obviously designed for the field. You know, if we're talking about DoD and Overwatch and that type of scenario, you want to be IP54 rated. That's where we are anyway, so you can endure that dust and that austere environment and take on some rain, right? Man portable, so lower footprint. You're not taking up an entire vehicle necessarily. You have two cases to deal with. You just saw somebody working the camera itself through a joystick type of setup. So it's more of an observation type of flight profile versus a piloting type of profile. So a lot of automation built in, a lot of redundancy in the safety. So yeah, we can dive more into all that as we go.
We definitely will, and I love it. I love the scenery, as you said, some of those money shots, the Orion too, in beautiful environments there, also austere. And I know we're going to talk about that, but before we kind of break down all the things you just mentioned, right, all the different facets of the Orion 2, I really want to start with this idea of tethered drones, right? Because this is Industry Enablers Month, and this concept of a tether, I think, is really important and novel, like, right? So tell us, you know, the value proposition for the tether for drones, whether for the Orion 2, which is built for your tether, or others, because it's, you know, kind of drone agnostic, if you will. Why tethers?
Absolutely. The first thing, you know, right out of the gate is endurance, right? We understand the limitations that LiPo or ion or any other battery kind of source you're using that's available brings, right? So that 45-minute, we get excited, right? 45-minute flight. Granted, you're free flying, right? So you can fly to that point of interest. Tether allows that ability to take that same kind of commercial off-the-shelf drone, be it an M300 or something in that class, and now you're adding an 8-hour flight. So it's a dual mission set. So I have one drone that I can fly free if I like, or if I again need to go into that Overwatch type scenario, I can plug in my commercial off the shelf through an Elistair station. So there's your additional mission set. Now I'm not slave to that mission set. I can land that unit, unattach or unplug it, and fly again with roughly 70% battery. So you can still maintain free fly after you tether, right? So that's endurance is a big one, being able to provide that. Why would you want to stay in one space? You know, as I joined Elistair, I was looking at the application and I thought, wow, you know, that seems like ancient, you know, first days of drone, let's put it on a wire. But I think people's familiarity with the technology and using it in multiple different facets have really built the value proposition, because now sensor technology is advanced. I have a lot of zoom capability. I have thermal, you got your EOIR going on, so you can see a lot with sensor capability as well, right? So endurance, dual mission set, if you have to stay there for an extended amount of time, and ease of use too. You know, it takes down that additional flight responsibilities, I would say, or even understandings as you are moving through space, right? Now you're staying in one spot and you're focused more on the capability of what you can see or what you're trying to find. Does that make sense?
It does. So how is this different, you know, for folks? Obviously, so many different markets or so many different organizations require security. And as I think about this, I think about those, security cameras you see attached to buildings, right? What makes this so much different and better than just a static security camera like what we're all so used to?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's something that crossed my mind as well. And mobility, you know, at the end of the day. Another thing you may think of is why is this different than an aerostat or a balloon or those types of things, right? And at the end of the day, it's very man packable, right? Or man portable, I should say. Packable would be quite a lift. But yeah, mobility. If you need to change, you know, the perimeter or change the mission set, you sometimes think of Orion in a singular use. But if you have multiple, right, then you can really kind of set up a wider area of surveillance, and that's very easy to move and customize. Fixed assets are just that, right? Poles don't really make a lot of sense because you may not be in that one spot forever. You can't move those very easily, and the same thing for fixed cameras. Last thing I'll say on it is that, you know, we're headed towards that direction when we think about, again, the Internet of Things and connectivity. This is going to be something that's an additive to, right? This is a gap filler. So in those blind spots or wherever you need data that you cannot get, then why, you know, we can be connecting to those peripheral technologies or assets.
All right, so it could be networked to that. So you mentioned man portable, of course, woman portable too. I'm just curious, how heavy is it? How heavy is it?
So the unit itself is roughly, you know, 20 pounds or so.
Oh, that's not bad at all.
Yeah, it's not bad. But when you're talking about the cases and everything that goes in it, it's absolutely not for this person portable, I should say, right? That's going to be a heavier lift. So more portable in the sense of moving it around mobility wise with the vehicle and those types of things.
Gotcha. And I don't think it was covered in the video, or you mentioned this, but I remember on Clubhouse you discussed how quickly this can be deployed. Like, what's the average, like, kind of amount of minutes that you can get this thing unpacked and up in the air?
Yeah, so somebody, you know, obviously depends on experience level, but if you're familiar with this and you've done it, you know, a handful of times, and you understand your process, again, our brochure is going to tell you less than 15 minutes. And, you know, I'm asking the folks that are doing this on the daily, and they're telling me 10 minutes, you know, with ease. So
That's awesome. So,
yeah.
by the way, Jenny Laird, I asked a question, maybe you know, it's AES 256.
I'm sorry.
The question is, it literally says AES 256 question mark.
I'm gonna make a funny face on that one and come back to you. You know, I do know that, you know, we're ITAR free and we've passed those comms checks that are necessary for U.S. government to use, because we do have U.S. government customers. So.
Okay, so Jenny, I don't know if you want to like elaborate or what, but we'd be happy to answer your question maybe with a little bit more information. So explain to folks, Troy, how this works. You talked about your tethering station, right? Your base station, if you will, and then the tether itself. Like, how does the power, like, just explain how this actually flows to the drone power wise, flowing up and back, and you know, just kind of in layman's terms.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, the bottom line is you still need a power source, right? So going back to that person portable ability, yeah, you know, you can only envision somebody dragging around a generator or something.
Right.
It's a no-go. But yes, you do need a generator to power the tether station. On that tether station, you're sending power and data up and down that wire, right? Or fiber optic cable, because we offer both. And so that's the setup, right? So Orion, station, power. Doesn't have to be generator. It's something that could be slave to a vehicle if you needed that to happen. So.
Okay, very cool. And by the way, not to jump around here, but it looks like CK is explaining the question was regarding encryption. And
yeah,
so,
that's why I jumped over to it being secure and passing those tests. But yeah, I'd have to check exactly what we're running.
okay, gotcha. So obviously having that data encrypted from the, so how does that work anyway, Troy? The power, you just explained how the power works, but how does the data flow? You know, is it cloud-based? Is it, you know, do you have to use a, you know, some kind of a manual mechanism to download that data? Like, how does it actually work?
So it's a great question, right? So not cloud-based, right? We're not storing anything. We're going to pull the data in, and that's going to come down that copper, that 2mm copper, and that's going to come from your station into your ground control station, right? So maybe that's something I left out between generator and tether. So you have a laptop, you know, we go to market with a tough book type of scenario, right? So that's going to come right into your ground control station. We have our very own software. It's called T-Planner. So you can see what's going on as if you're using a camera. So if you've got EOIR up, then you're, you know, watching with minimal delay, right, from capture down, what's happening right there on your station. And then you have the opportunity to spread that out, democratize, disseminate, however you want to do, with other viewers, right? So if you wanted to collect at a more forward point or and have something on a closed, secure network, then you have the ability to do so.
Okay, and so how long? I know you mentioned the length of time that it can stay aloft. You said up, at up to 24 hours, but
Mhm.
you've gone longer than that, right? And this is on the generator.
Yeah, absolutely. We have, and I like to keep, we like to keep a lot of these expectations and metrics and everything at pretty sober. We're not one that wants to over promise, right, and under deliver kind of thing. We've done flights up to 50 hour recently. I think just last week we had a 50-hour flight, right?
Wow.
And if we're hitting that, and we get enough of that to say, hey, let's go ahead and market that, then we will. But yeah, we like to say up to 24 hours. A lot of times, you can have some weather roll in, because that's what took us down from like a 56-hour flight, was the atmosphere changed, winds picked up, and you needed to adjust. So
Okay, wow, that's amazing. And so how far does it see? Like what kind of range does it have from a detection standpoint?
So it depends on the sensor that you're using. We do have the ability to integrate with other sensors, but most of our users that reach out to us, they really kind of have that need to be able to see something as far as 10 kilometers away, right? So you can at
Wow.
least identify that something's happening there, and you can make out, a lot higher detail around that 3 to 4 kilometer range, and you're really getting super high resolution within that 1 kilometer, right?
Yeah.
So person on a ladder at a far distance, I can tell that there's a ladder, may not be able to differentiate, who that person is if I have a profile kind of thing. But in closer, then yes, you're seeing more of who that person, if they're fitting a profile description, if you will. Now I'm starting to see, the type of vehicle it is, etc. Model, we're not reading license plates at that point, but coming on closer, then yes. So you have a 30x zoom, so you can get quite a distance on it.
Okay, all right. And so how high up does the tether go? I think you've got like two different versions.
We do. We do. We have the light T. So to jump back over to that product and what Elistair provides. So we have a light T and we have a safe T. Okay. And that light T is 230 feet of tether that's available. Lower power output, more designed to power smaller platforms, right? That don't require as much power to operate. So, but our latest version, we've juiced it up a bit, so you can power an M300, for instance, for those familiar with that class of drone, off of a light T. And then the safety, a bit more advanced, provides more power. So now you're able to jump into the higher, 6 series, 12 series type of platforms like the Orion is, and you have 330 feet on that as well. So.
So why did Elistair pick those, I guess, height levels?
It's a good question. And I asked the same one, right? Because it's like 330, huh? So, there's at the end of the day, not only is it a safety, challenge that we're providing a solution to, but also, it's a power challenge, right? This is a power solution. So, there's also that sweet spot in between size of drone as well, right? And 330 feet was optimal for what we were using with Orion. And again, when you start getting into, as I understand, as you start getting into, much longer tether lengths, and you get into some spooling factors, if you will, by transferring that much power on board. So the smart people at Elistair figured out, again, that sweet spot to be able to maintain very long endurance flights. And that's why we come back to Orion was built for tether. So that's the best I can give you on that. And then we're diving into deep physics, which everybody knows that's not my game.
Nor is it mine. And just for the record, I also do not do public math. So there you go. All right. So very, very good. So I'm sorry I'm jumping around. There's so many different facets to this product. So the ground control station, you said that there's basically the information flows down to the GCS, and on the video we saw the joystick. So the GCS, the joystick, it's all connected, and you can not only see the data flowing, but also control the sensor and the drone itself and the tether from that.
Absolutely. So yes, you know, it's very much that type of, you know, if you visualize that crane type operation, right? You want to go up, push a little bit more, and you'll go up in increments. Okay. And once you get to your desirable altitude, you don't always need to be at 330 feet sometimes, or maybe my winds are a little bit higher up there. Then I can easily come back down to a stable level. But when I find, you know, where I want to be, then yeah, you turn into this joystick mode, right? And you can rotate the Orion if you wish, but you do have a 3-axis camera, right? So you're able to yaw all the way around if you need. Why would you want to reposition the Orion? The Orion is designed in a way that you can face it more towards the wind, right? And give it a better kind of streamline up there. And you'll notice that because you're looking at your parameters on your T-planner. So you could see power increasing, right? The draw, as you visualize wind pooling on that system and it drawing more power, things are happening. So I could observe that and try to rotate if I had to stay at 330 feet, and I could see a more stable power draw, right? And there's an optimal, you know, space for power. You want to stay in this window, right? If you start seeing that climb and climb and climb, then it's time to do something more evasive. But to your point, yes, it's very joystick, and you're flipping in between different sensors, be it EIEIO, right? But EOIR or thermal, black hot, white hot, you've got it all right there on the joystick.
Well, your comments raised two questions in my mind. The first is on safety, because, you know, anytime had a week full of weather with Don Bershoff last week, right?
Yeah.
In North Dakota, it's just talking weather all the time. But such a significant thing for operations, and can really create, and you just said you had maybe a 56-hour flight to turn into a 50-hour flight because of weather. So what are the safety mechanisms on, you know, the Orion 2 or on your system in general, in the event there is some kind of a situation and maybe you can't do something quick enough? Like what do you have to maintain safety for air and ground?
So it's a great question, right? And again, right, safety is paramount. This is all a big safety case too. But between your propulsion, your command control, and also your power supply, you have a lot of redundancy. From the propulsion standpoint, we're a hexacopter design, right? So if, you know, the case arose where you lost a boom or an arm of power on that, then you have backups to stay in the air. You also have the redundance on the command and control piece as well, right? So we have the data using the tether, but if something were to happen in that scenario, there's also a radio link as a secondary, right? And as a tertiary, all things are failing around that. Then we have a remote control as well. So you can manually override in a very like stable type of flight profile in that loiter GPS lock mode that we're all so familiar with. And then you also have full manual takeover if you absolutely needed it. Another redundancy would be the power supply. So if something were to happen to your main power supplier, generator vehicle, whatever it may be, there is a battery on board as well, right? So you have a backup battery that's going to be able to get you through that scenario and descend and land. There's a couple of others. I could speak on the parachute, which I had the joy of spending some time today with. It was a lot of fun on purpose, right? So I really wanted to check out, you know, what this parachute type setup meant. And that will deploy, you know, roughly around 20 meters or so, if needed. Okay, so if nothing else is happening and you lose all power, then there's an internal system that's going to pop a parachute. My question is like, well, okay, that happens, now what, right? You know, you do deal with some undulation, but is it like a total loss? Was it just cool that we saw a parachute before it, you know, smashed into 1,000 pieces? And I was very, very surprised actually. So, you know, it takes a lot of that energy out, as parachutes do, and you have a landing and you still have a saved drone, right? If you're going to do that 5 times in a row, no promises made, right? But if you needed to encounter that once, and if you had to encounter that twice, that would be an extreme rarity. And it's already an extreme rarity. So we have the parachute there as well. for safety. So.
No, that's great. And you're right, safety is first. So kind of dovetailing from safety into this kind of regulatory question, Troy, I know you're not the regulatory expert, but I know we also talked about it a little bit. Because, when I wrote that book for the Unmanned Safety Institute, Unmanned Aircraft Systems, Legal and Business Considerations, talking to Josh Olds, the president there at USI, he says a question he get, maybe this will be a future iteration, I don't know. But he says he gets a lot of questions on tethered drones, actually, like what law. So let's talk United States first, because I know you're sitting in Lyon, France right now. But in the United States, we got Part 107. I don't believe that the FAA distinguishes between a tethered drone and a non-tethered drone for purposes of Part 107. Is that correct?
Right. I think there's been some misinformation in the past, that's been more kind of just like marketing and sales driven. And I did just see some pretty interesting information released by DOT. But as of right now, it's treated just as 107, right? This is a commercial operation. That's, at the moment that you break 150 feet. Below 150 feet, there's a lot more ability to fly without such heavy scrutiny. But at the end of the day, it's treated as a Part 107. Same thing. The thing we got was line of sight. Sorry, Don. The thing was line of sight. Fog came up. What if I can't see it? Well, then you're flying beyond visual line of sight, right? So just because it's tethered doesn't mean that you don't have to observe those rules.
Wow. Okay. So the folks flying these things should be Part 107 certified. The folks controlling that joystick, working on from the GCS, they should be Part 107 pilots in the United States.
Yes. And again, that's above 150 feet, and the exemption underneath 150 feet, as I recall, that's in Class G airspace, right? And as we know, you don't need that for the operator, especially underneath that 150 feet. But yes, the moment that you break that, then you need to be Part 107. That's my latest understanding on it.
Yeah, it's just so weird. So I'm not going to quibble. I don't know where this 150 is coming from, but I would just say if anybody's using a system like this for commercial ops, they should just have a license and training. So let me ask you that, Troy. Is there any specialized training needed? Because it is, I would imagine, very different flying freehand, as kind of you mentioned, free flying, versus flying something on a tether.
Absolutely. I'm always a proponent of that. As simple as anyone will make a tether operation sound, and it is an easy way of using drone technology and sensor technology. But yes, it's a different type of familiarization. And being safety is the first, right? So understanding, outside of maybe how much goes on at the ground level on the system itself, but understanding the broader airspace, kind of back to the 107. If you're putting something up in the air, I think you should know what's going on around you so that you know how to react appropriately, right? But we spend some time with key customers and anybody really that wants to reach out and get training from us. But again, some of the key customers we'll come back to and we'll do refresher training, and it's always, and we're all creatures of this, right? We take in a technology, we learn it, and then we start creating our way, right? I'm going to do it, Troy's way. And then we see these things, and they're just little tweaks that may seem little, but in the grander scheme of things, they may not be. So training is always encouraged, for sure.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Well, let's pivot to your market use cases. I mean, the video we saw had, basically a military use case there. What other, kind of, if you were to say who are kind of your ideal clients, right, for this system, who would they be?
Yeah, we're always looking to expand and take on more market share, right? So these conversations are constant, and it's actually quite a bit of fun to get a lot of the inbound requests, because you're always learning of that kind of peripheral application, right? But the common theme across the board are those looking for endurance. right? If somebody needs endurance, you need to be able to fly longer than an hour, then the conversation, usually starts. The thing maybe I had left out before that just popped in my mind as I was thinking through different applications was also tactical communications or even non-tactical communications. We just saw, God bless everybody that has to deal with Ian and the aftermath, right?
Yeah, the hurricane. Yeah, awful.
Yeah, exactly. And there were, some applications out there attempting communication relays and those types of things. But that's something that we can bring to the fight as well, right? So you can integrate, as I was telling you before, different capabilities onto the Orion. Now it becomes more of a chassis, right? So if I need to put a radar up, if I need to put a Silvus radio up, not to plug Silvus, that's who we've been familiar with. But if you need to put comms up, and we can also entertain hybrids, right? So if you needed to have a smaller radio and also have video, these are possibilities, right? But border protection, I've been using the word overwatch a lot more than surveillance these days. As we're more sensitive to, what we're actually trying to provide, and there's evidence collection, right? There's timeline on an event. And those types of things. So there's a broad range of users in there. So we're a global company. To just expand on that and the specifics, you've got DoDs, of course, and the MODs, right? And anybody that you can think of that's working that border scene, they're using our stuff as well. And then anybody that's providing Overwatch for very important people, I'm not going to throw out end user names and those types of things.
Yeah.
But that's also, something that they want to rely on. So,
that's a great point, Troy. There, as you just said that, I was thinking, VIP protection. Usually there's some kind of a route. Now, sometimes they'll be very public, right? Like where you have, for example, let's just throw out there the Pope or something, right? There's going to be a parade path and everybody's going to know what that is because people are going to be lined up to watch this person. Or something even like a big event, right? Like the Boston Marathon, and we know what happened there many, many years ago.
Yep.
And the FBI was, using the little cameras on the storefronts down that running path to gather evidence after the fact, after that horrific event we had at the Boston Marathon. But to have something like the Orion, I mean, drones are great. Free flying is great.
Sure.
But a scenario like that, where there is a designated route, it's going to be very big, very public, VIP, or a large gathering. Ideal, I would think.
Absolutely. If you think again, the blind spot, the gap filler, if somebody's in a space for an extended amount of time, somebody's having a meeting that's going to be longer than 3 hours or whatever it may be, you have that capability, again, as an additive. The other thing that goes into this, in my mind, I look at Orion and tethered drone and our stations is more of a chassis as a solution, right? Because, okay, great, I have camera ability, I can see far and I can do white hot, black hot. But, now we start to bring in that AI, we start to bring in object analytics, we start to be able to see something move while we're running that in the background, right? So you can plug in those different types of applications to go away from the more, I guess, serious scenarios and jump over into more of an observation, be it traffic, right? So traffic monitoring has been something that you need to stay up for an extended amount of time to get enough data. So, you're able to put boxes around those cars and see if they're moving at a certain speed or not. So the AI piece is really interesting as well. So.
That really is. And, as I think about it, you're talking about kind of being a chassis and, this integration that sounds kind of plug and play, right? I imagine you're sensor agnostic. You mentioned a specific radar company, but I imagine you could work with any company.
We can, to a degree, right? So we're only so strong, we're only so strong. So we can, at the moment, we can entertain capabilities that are 4.4 pounds or less, right? And
Gotcha.
That was an important play for us with Orion to expand our market and get people used to the stability of our product. and that was through a PDK, right? So we've had university customers, again, won't name them, but some of your well-known universities that have gone out and integrated their own solution onto Orion for data collection, right? So they're able to do that. Plug and play, I'm the king of making, hard sound simple. There's work that goes in on that, but we do have the buffer with the PDK. The plug and play piece, in my mind, really comes back to if you have your own drone, right? So we have a couple different conversations. Don, you come to me, Troy, I need power. I have a drone, I just need power. Well, our stations integrate with 40 different platforms, right?
Wow.
40 plus actually, right?
Okay.
So it more than likely is going to be one that you already have. If not, we can talk about integration. But we have air modules. That's the plug and play in my mind. That air module, for lack of a better description, could be like a docking station, if you will, for a drone. And that's allowing power through. So you keep your batteries, you keep everything on there, and we're regulating that back into your drone. That's very plug and play. That's like seconds. Boom, boom, you're in, you're plugged in, you're up, you're down.
Okay, very cool.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, by the way, Olga is out there saying thank you. Excellent information. Olga is a regular, not just here, but certainly on Clubhouse. She's almost in there every single week. So we appreciate you, Olga.
What's up, Olga?
Woohoo! So very, very cool. Yeah. And all right. So 4 pounds, but weather sensors are an example. I'm going to throw something out we hadn't talked about, Troy. I'm going off script here a little bit. So
let's go.
Although as I was thinking about the VIP, kind of the mass gathering thing, this idea of a chassis, counter drone is so important. Are you thinking about working with any like counter drone companies, like, because you're the Overwatch, if you will. You're gathering that information, and then, maybe something needs to be deployed, right? So, Overwatch in a way is kind of like that detection capability, right? You can see, so it's a visual, it's like literally an image that you're getting, right? Through the system, that you could see what's out there. But you could add other different capabilities that are more like counter drone like, I imagine.
Sure. This is what's really cool, and kind of going back to the beginning, when I had my initial thoughts about tether, and then I made a comment about people's use of drone, and now we've gotten past familiarity. We understand this tech to a level, we've done crazy things, we've pushed it to its limits, right? And now we're coming back to this Sentinel piece. Again, I think sensor tech and those types of things really helped all that make sense.
Yeah.
And then the interconnectivity is where, in that era now. Right. So if you can think of it, then we've spoken with them. And I'm not kidding you when I say a lot of that conversation is inbound. We get a lot of those types of questions, or, hey, let's start talking. And yes, so we've been in active conversations with counter drone as well. Right. Anybody needing endurance, that Sentinel type of setup, the world opens wide open, right? For a lot of different applications.
Yeah, I could see if you could have multiple sensors on one Orion, right? Lightweight, they got to be, right, low swap, right, size, weight, and power.
Sure.
You think about the future, you think about advanced air mobility vertiports. I just saw, in fact, we just talked about this the other day. Boeing and Wisk put out their AAM or UAM ConOps, essentially. And, one of the things they talked about was cybersecurity. What wasn't in there was physical security, because when you think about a vertiport, it's going to be kind of no different than an airport in some respects. You have to protect that flight path of those aircraft from drones. And to have an Orion with multiple sensors on there that could do that from a tether, at a location, like at the right location, right, around a vertiport, man, that would be ideal. Buddy, we're going to be talking afterwards. I've got some ideas. My brain is going.
Sounds good.
I love this. So we are getting, I know, and I think really, no pun intended, the sky's the limit. Tethered, of course. So what did we not cover, Troy? What did we not cover, Troy, that you wanted to cover here? Because we're getting really short on time, and I want to make sure that you leave the audience with, kind of the most important things that you'd love for them to take away from this conversation.
Absolutely. I appreciate that opportunity. And yes, let's please do brainstorm, because there's tons going on. But yes, just to briefly tap on that bigger picture, it's going to be interesting to see how that architecture comes together. What is it? Is it ground-based DAA? Is it all these things? What is the micro weather, right? Bringing Don in. So it'll be really interesting to see, speaking fast on purpose.
Yeah.
And then one thing I want people to know, and what really stood out to me over my last 7 months here, we're hearing technologists, hearing technology leaders explaining to me, the reason that they are drawn to Elistair, this isn't, in the sales side of things, this is very much on the technical technology side, is our path of evolution over the years has been very stable, right? We've brought on the latest tech, and we've not been overshooting the moon kind of thing. So our progression makes a lot of sense, and that's why we've been around for 8 years. We have this down, right? On the station side, it's like, okay, it's cool, it's a box with some string in it. Nah, there's a lot involved. There's spooling technology, right? I won't go what I've been told, right? That's where we shine big time as well, is when you've got a drone up in the air, you've got this tech that's rolling that. So you have an auto torque type setup. So you're not getting this drone in a very uncomfortable I'm a very physical, verbal person, right? But you're not getting in this uncomfortable attitude, looking up at a drone, going, man, if it goes another 15 degrees, we're smoked, right? So you have this comfortability in the flight itself. So we've been here, we know what we're doing. We're building out in the U.S. I want to also emphasize that. So we're building out this U.S. team. I was third when I came on. We've hired 3 since then, and we're here to be in the U.S. to provide that support, build those relationships. So you keep me on time, Don, because I'll just keep going.
No, we're good. And we got another Rob Noxious podcast. Hello there, Rob Noxious. I'm going to now have to check you out just because, frankly, I love the name. Don't know what attracted you to the Dawn of Drones, but glad you're here. No, this is really great stuff, Troy. And you're right. You're kind of making a footprint here in the United States, headquarters there in France. You guys are global. Absolutely. I've seen you at a lot of shows. You've been really showing the flag and planting it here in the U.S. So where might we find you next, Troy?
Oh man, there's a ton going on. So I'm gonna pop out with we're gonna pop out with ADS next week in Virginia. They're having an event. So yes, we're out there. Wherever there's an opportunity to show the capability, we're gonna be there. I mean, as long as we have a human person that can go, right? So we're on the ground and we're out showing it. But feel free to reach out to us. We're very demo friendly, right? If you want to see it, then hey, let's book some time and we'll do something private with you as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. I can't believe we're in Q4 of 2022, that the year's winding down. I look at the calendar, honestly, I have so much to do. I'm freaking out because it's just like there's only with the holidays in there, only a couple weeks, and then we're into 2023.
Right.
So just real quick, we're just spitballing here. As you look back on 2022, what would you say was like, the big highlight for Elistair? Is it your US kind of growth?
Yeah, absolutely. Coming in and seeing, who we have as customers was automatically just, went above and beyond my expectations to know who we're working with and then engage with them, right? And get down to the application, because that's my heart and soul, right? Is the application. I've been the person on the edge of whatever and having to rely on technology. So building that rapport and then taking them to the next level of success over the last 7 months has been a crazy wild ride. And then, of course, it's been great to be back out. Like you said, the world's back on kind of thing, right? So it's been good to see everybody again, poke jokes at each other and talk about what's next and what's great and coming. So.
No, I couldn't agree more. So last question.
All right.
Anything big for 2023? Anything you want to tease before we hang up?
Well, that's tough with the keep that curtain, one of those curtains closed. But I can only tell you that, we're getting better every single day. When I see, what's coming through and how we're improving what we have, and then our experience and that comes from our customer requirements and suggestions and where we're going, it's extremely exciting. So I'm not gonna pin any months. I'm not gonna do any of that kind of stuff. But on the maybe lesser exciting news, we'd be happy to host you in Wilmington, North Carolina, because we're relocating the U.S. headquarters from the Boston area to a more favorable spot for the stage we're at, down to Wilmington, North Carolina. So if you want to come see us at the coast, bring it on. So we'll be.
All right, well, that's big news. You heard it here, everybody. I love getting firsts here on the Dawn of Drones, but we'll be talking to you more, hopefully, in 2023, Troy. We're going to keep watching Elistair. Thank you so much for what you do. Everybody, you can find the website again in the chat and at the end of this reel. So thank you, Troy. And Chris Wedgeworth did have a question. We're not going to get to Chris's question. I apologize, Chris. He is also a super fan, by the way, so we love Chris. That's all she wrote. So we are out here, everybody. Take good care.